and the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the Pope chair under it. Scroll down, look at the Pope chair under
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown lesson.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Hey, y'all, we told y'all we would be back on Friday. Now, this right here this tape is very important because it's a public service announcement, because there's a lot of stuff been going on in the background that Rod has been saying that was happening, and that we coming to make more people aware of what's going on right now, because the more minds we have aboard, the faster this go down, because like I said, they only got the minds, they don't got the land. And so a lot of illegal stuff that's been going on still, even after the Pope had already sent Obama the letter saying to cease and desist with all the criminal activity that they had going on, because they had with the Matrix, they pretty much had ended the Matrix. The Pope sent we did the matter of fact, in the links in the descriptions, we got the letter to the breakdown of the letter to the Pope in the link in the descriptions. So Rod finna come on and start and tell you what we got going on with the public announcement, and then we'll go into some video clips. This right here is gonna be a real good one. So hey, Rod, go ahead, tell them what we got going on.
Okay, I sent that to you too. You got it in your text. So what we disclosing to y'all, we making sure that you guys are aware that we was following the tribal oral tradition to reclaim everything that belonged to the tribes. We have what they call territorial land rights. With the territorial land rights, that give us the jurisdictional supremacy on the land. We were under the subjection to the Admiralty jurisdiction, which is minority jurisdiction on the land, meaning it's not controlling. But they took control based on us not asserting our oral traditions to overthrow their paperwork. Article 77 of the Longhouse Treaty says that when they violated their, when they came to the time where they was up for evaluation to continue the contract, one of the chiefs, a war chief, myself being a war chief, historically Chief Pontiac is an Ottawa war chief. Hereditarily, I, as a student of war and warfare, have become the most qualified person on the land that I'm on to inherit the war rights of Chief Pontiac. But I'm not the only Chief Pontiac. I'm the Chief Pontiac war chief, military strategist, and tribal general, and equivalent to the tribal positions as you understand ranking systems. So The underlining purpose of an oral tradition is to vocally say what they don't want you to say, to offend the sensibility of the innocent, and to humiliate the guilty and cause shame upon the guilty for doing the dirt they did. And this is going to polarize the people. The people will be polarized by the innocent versus the guilty, the righteous versus the unrighteous. When we say righteous, that means right in position of cultural norm. We establish the cultural norm, they hijack it, alter it, and then feed it back to us. Panthers started a breakfast program for the children. What do? They shut them down and then they offer a breakfast program because they can't stand for us to tend to our own affairs. So by putting it in the public domain, following the oral tradition, other independent chiefs around the land get to scrutinize the evaluation that the person talking is explaining to determine if it's valid and if they would make allegiance as a chief who agree that the corporate jurisdiction no longer serves the best interests of any of the tribes. And every tribal leader that understands this becomes sometimes even a hostile addition to support the claim. And when I say hostile, that means that I don't really too much care for Chief Pontiac Rod Hayes. I don't like that saying, but he right about my stuff, right? So even though I don't like him, because he right about me claiming my birthright, then I'm going to support the cause of following the oral tradition of the tribes, and I'm going to put my oral statement out there so y'all know that even though I don't like him, I agree with the fact that we need to overthrow these tyrants. So the warring clans, you got OGs from all sets now, as they say in the hood, which means you got elders from every tribe that's been put in the public domain, our status across the land, right? So when they come with the fraud, we put it in the public domain to inform the other tribes members and the other chiefs about the possibility of us reclaiming our birthright. Here we see where they already said that if we exercise our right, they can't do nothing about it. Scroll up a little bit more so I can show them where it comes from. This is Article 13 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. The reason that it's 13, because that's called the Queen Mother Seal. 13 is the Queen Mother's seat. It's bad luck to the enemy, but it's good luck to the people. The indigenous people have the right. That when they tell you have a right, that means that if you exercise your right, they can't stop it. The indigenous people have a right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmute to future generations their histories, languages, and oral traditions, philosophies, writing systems, literatures, and to design and retain their own names. Scroll up better. For communities, places, and persons. That's telling us that if right now, if my city chiefs come together and say, we ain't gonna call this Pontiac no more, right? We gonna call it Arrow Tip. They can't stop us from exercising that right. Then it's a communities. That means that we can name our own neighborhoods. We don't have to go by the neighborhoods that they named for us. Persons, that means the names of your children. The government can't tell you that you can't change your child's name and your child can't change their own name, right? Because the way that the tribes named children in the first place was by observation of character, We didn't name our children on average until they was about 2 or 3 years old, and we gave them a naming ceremony. Before that, we had to see which elder this was coming back so we would know how to name him, whether he was going to be young elder or old elder. You get that, young elder? So go to the other one. Now, this was Article 13. The other picture, elder. This is a repeat. Now, notice it's Article 31. Mirror flip by imagery, right? So it can reiterate it, still sealed by the Queen Mother. Indigenous peoples had a right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expression, as well as the manifestation of the sciences, technologies, cultures, including human and genetic resources, seeds, medicines, knowledge of the properties of fauna and flora, oral traditions, literatures, designs, sports, and traditional games, and visual and performing arts. Now, we finna go into the videos, and to give y'all like a little introduction to why we going into these videos, we have a civil rights attorney since 2023 has been going to each one of the city councils or county or state legislators, informing them of the violations that they making according to their constitutional agreement, and that all of them are operating in fraud. Now, when we do a public notice, it's notice to agent, it's notice to principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent. All social media platforms are viable formats for public notice because they are time-stamped, archivable formats that can be retrieved and labeled and received by the public in numbers of exceeding 1,000 people. That's what makes all social media formats viable outlets for a public notice. So we explained to you that everything that we're doing is following the oral tradition of the tribes. We claimed everything back already. Now, you're going to see a lot of what we call Indo-Europe or Neo-Europeans, palefaces, serving public notice, right, on our behalf, but we don't know they working for us because they've been appearing to have worked against us for so long. We don't trust them. So we don't trust them. They have to go out and do the dangerous work that would normally get one of us assassinated if they really in the interest of the best good. So we ain't sending nobody to do nothing. We send them to do it. Just like you sent them to block all the institutions so we couldn't have access to anything, but we still came up regardless of the situation. We still came up, right? So they did everything they could to bury us, and the seed bust through the ground, a whole oak tree in short order, and they didn't even see it growing. So roll the corn, elder. Roll the corn.
Hey,
we
this
know
first
the truth
one,
now.
I don't know how this. I don't think you sent me this first one, but some kind of way it got downloaded, and I say, "Oh yeah, this go along with just what he's saying too." And when he get through saying what he's saying, could you explain a little bit the shipwreck and how they crash their ship? You already explained it yesterday, but this gonna go along with the class too.
Jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction. Is it land, air, water? There's a guy, David, that can't get his wife out of jail, but he knows everything about the law, and he tells you that law stands for land, air, water. 3 types of jurisdiction. Okay. We'll go there. But here's what you have to do. First of all, in your paperwork, you must have the phrase, "As one of the people, I hereby invoke the common law jurisdiction." Then you challenge the jurisdiction of the prosecution or of CPS or of the IRS or of the government agency and demand that they prove personal jurisdiction and subject jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction. And you use that phrase. Don't go personal, subject, and subject matter. Personal jurisdiction and subject jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction. Then demand that they provide the trust in question. Demand that they prove they are an agency of government by showing the charter that Congress authorized them according to the Constitution. And then demand the contract or other commercial agreement which obligates you to their jurisdiction. And if you cannot provide me with those, then I respectfully demand that you give me an affidavit in support of the warrant for my arrest, or the warrant to seize my child, or the warrant to seize my money, and a warrant signed by a neutral judge that's disassociated with that court. There's an important case, that's what that citation is, Coolidge versus New Hampshire, which talks about that specifically, that it must be a neutral and detached judge. It can't be from the same courthouse. Sorry, guys, everything they've been doing to us is a fraud. Unconstitutional.
Yeah, right. I think that's a good one right there. What he was, because
You remember we did the video on jurisdiction?
Yeah.
When we went over subject matter jurisdiction, we went over territorial jurisdiction, Admiralty jurisdiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
The instructions he was given was in the face of a court, and it's telling you, according to the rules of court, under the discovery aspect, when you request the discovery that details their ability to prosecute by having what's called competent jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling you the things that has to be on file in order to establish that competent jurisdiction over the person, which is personal jurisdiction, which nobody has jurisdiction over you unless you are a minor. Your parents have jurisdiction over you, not the state.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Personal jurisdiction makes you sui juris
Mm-hmm.
in proper person, proper persona.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when you sui juris, that means you are a competent adult, right? Able to handle your own affairs as a sovereign. But they don't honor that under the corporate jurisdiction, because to honor that would be to confess to their fraud.
Right.
Right? The whole constructed fraud is based on a wartime acquisition of the Americas, and it was being exercised by the Crown of England under the false pretense that the colonists was independent of the Crown when they rebelled. But they was never independent of the Crown because King George was funding both sides of the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's funding both sides, he gonna win no matter who come out winning. But all of it is a Mutt and Jeff routine to deceive and dupe the natives of the land, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they start their conquest and expansion. This is why they got rid of the Articles of Confederation, of the Continental Congress, because it's never been overturned. It's more controlling in law than the actual Constitution, because first in line is first in times under the grandfather clause.
Mm-hmm.
So they never said that we no longer need the Articles of Confederation, therefore we render them null and void. There's no court case that says that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no legislation before Congress that says that. They just start doing their thing in place of us doing ours. And when we opened ours up at Congress Hall, they shut it down and opened theirs up in DC.
Mm-hmm.
You see the switch.
Mm-hmm.
DC was called Rome at the time. And all roads lead to Rome. So when they start their conquest, they have to first get control of the people. This is where your slave patrols began that turned into your police department.
Right.
Right? When they were slave patrols, that was a name given to them after the fact. But they used to be called Indian control
Mm-hmm.
when they first was established. Right? And the purpose is the whole goal was to try to seize all of the highest ranked elders so that they can encroach upon us and expect the youth not to know the ways of the elders to be able to fend them off. So they can force their law system. Their uniforms give them the appearance of legitimacy. That's called uniform systems.
Mm-hmm.
That falls under the jurisdiction of the Uniform Commercial Codes. The codes is the description of how to operate the systems.
Mm-hmm.
This is why when you study in law, when you get to the Uniform Commercial Code, that's a whole separate field of study. Because it's so expansive, but it's a couple of things in there that's critical. It said that when the rightful owners assert ownership, that the fraudulent owner must surrender it.
That's right.
Right? So when we using the oral traditions, we following our ways. By following our ways, as we get more and more of the tribes active in understanding what's taking place, we start to form an exceedingly large alliance of tribe members, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't have a problem with the $5 Indians except for the ones that got a problem with us.
Right.
I don't got a problem with pale faces except for the ones that got a problem with us.
Right.
I don't got a problem with Africans except for the ones that got a problem with us. Right? Everybody that got a problem with us, I got a problem with them.
Right.
Right? And we can solve it how you want to solve it. But as long as it's one of us, I don't got no problem.
Right.
Right? And the reason I don't got no problem with one of us is because we the righteous ones, standing in the position of right, exercising our rightful jurisdiction to reclaim what's rightfully ours that was given to us by the Creator when Earth was formed.
Right.
That's all. It's not personal. It's just family business.
Right.
I just take family business personal.
Right.
So I personally asserted our family jurisdictional right to exercise the law of the land, not the law of the Admiralty and Maritime. All of the systems was put in place for us to move back into our positions. Now we just have been putting in it for the last 5 years in the public domain so that all of the tribes can have an opportunity to discover it.
Mm-hmm.
The same way they do, except they put it in the public domain in codes. And then when they do, I read it, the code, and tell you what they saying.
Right.
Right. And sometimes it look like I got a crystal ball that I can see the future, but I can't. I could just tell you what they saying they gonna do according to the codes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And according to the stellar alignments, because they do everything on stellar alignment, zodiac mapping in order to map their course for prolonged times into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell y'all what they saying, what they doing, and then they give you an opportunity to disengage from the ABS. Example, the last show was about, what was the last show about, Elder?
Lady Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, we went over a commercial. You remember what the commercial was about?
Yeah, the children commercial.
About them going back to school, right?
Yeah.
Now, you know, you had a hot event in a school today that took several children's lives and wounded several other.
That's crazy.
Now, remember when we did the last show, they had just had one in Wisconsin that didn't hit the mainstream news, because I don't think nobody got killed or took out in that one.
Yeah.
Right. So they already heating up, telling parents to stop sending your children to school. We have to put it in the public domain in the simplified English format for the most amount of simplified English speaking people know exactly what they telling us with their codes. When they telling you in their school, going back to school commercial, that they gonna have an active event, right? It's not that it's speculative, it's gonna happen. So if you're not preparing your children on how to handle an active event in their school, you shouldn't send them. And if you send them, I can't say that much about your intelligence, because they already told us in the back to school commercial what to expect. And we done already had 2 events since I told you.
Yeah.
They told us what they gonna do.
And
so
you know, we got a whole tape on that, Rod. We got a whole tape called the school shootings. It's in the file too. A whole 2-hour tape breaking down exactly what they was gonna do. So it's crazy that's happening now. We did that tape like what, 3, 4, 5 months ago?
Might have been longer than that,
It might have been long ago. And then we also
might have been over a year ago, but because I've been telling them about the Manchurian candidates in the MK Ultra program for a couple of years, and people think that even when they had the event in New Orleans, when they was trying to put the hit on Ali Carter, and the Manchurian candidate said no and drove that car down that street in New Orleans instead. Mm-hmm. Right? And then the response back was explosion of a Tesla in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Telling the ENO that don't nobody tell us no, fool. Mm-hmm. But he told them no, and Ali's still here.
Mm-hmm. You gonna roll that next clip?
Roll the coin. We don't
notice the agent is notice the principal, but notice the principal is notice the agent. So instead of spending months and months running around trying to serve all these prosecutors, why not just go to their boss? Say, hey, boss, here's the crime. Here's the crime. Sense. I made you aware of a crime that's being committed, boss, and you can either, 1, correct the actions of your agents, and thereby, we fix the problem, or 2, you're now sanctioning it, and now I've notified every single one of your agents by your failure to take action as lawfully required, Mr. Drummond. You were notified, Drummond. You have been made aware of a criminal conspiracy to undermine the laws of the United States, because the state of Oklahoma, Article 2, Section 17 says that the prosecuting attorney can charge by information or indictment by their discretion. That is in violation of the Constitution of the United States of America, Clause 1 of Amendment 5. No state can enact its own alternative legislation and substitute it for the guarantees of the Constitution, because that would mean the state's laws are more powerful than the Constitution of the United States of America, and that is not consistent with the beliefs of the American people. So when a state does enact its own alternative legislation, substitutes it for the guarantees of the Constitution, and then directs their agents to enforce that inferior state law that permits them to deprive a person of a right that's guaranteed by the Constitution, that's a crime now, a crime. Because that prosecuting attorney has a duty and responsibility by oath or affirmation that they swore a future outcome, a promise that they made to the people of the United States that they would fulfill, and that is that you'll do what the Constitution of the United States says that you will do. Yeah. So when the state constitution says you don't have to do this, federal constitution says you do, prosecutors, you better figure out where your faith is at real quick here, because that's a crime, and it's a crime that, as prescribed by law, is punishable by death. You guys need to understand this is a serious offense here. Right. What you guys are doing is serious.
Treasoning. It's treason, I tell you.
Okay, now that was one of his public. He was giving you an explanation of what I went over at the beginning about notice to agent being notice to principal. So he decided to go straight for the top. The people that's given the instructions to follow the unconstitutional mandate that was not supposed to be enacted because it violates the Constitution. Remember, I've been telling everybody for the longest, they violate the Constitution whenever they want to, as long as we don't do it. All of their laws is they find ways around it, and they don't enforce them against each other like they enforce them against us. Right? So it's good to know, and it's important to know that this is actual and factual legal standing when we do the public notices. Roll the Cornell.
I got
you. If you're sitting in prison right now, the judgment that exists that's holding you there derives from an unlawful act or an unconstitutional act by the state when they thought that they could oversee the disposition of that dispute and act as the judge in the case when they're also the accuser in the case. That means that the judgment is void. That means that you would do a habeas corpus to challenge their unlawful detainment. You're currently detained unconstitutionally, in violation of your constitutional rights. The only reason why you're there is because of the breach of constitutional obligation that the state had when the judge chose to take action in a case in which they had no authority to take action. Right? So why would you appeal something? Why would you go to the end when you can go to the beginning? When you can challenge the detainment through the writ habeas corpus, and then what happens is that then you get the numbers. At the end, it's just you. You're fighting by yourself, all by yourself. You have to say all these bad things happened to me. But if we go to the beginning, we start at the beginning, we say, hey, all this couldn't have happened because this judge didn't have the authority to do it. If we go to the beginning, now we get a whole bunch of people, right? At the end, it's just you. You're all by yourself, right? You're not being heard because it's only you. You don't have an army with you. At the beginning, guess what? We've got 70 million people we can put right there at that point. Now we got an army. Now we got a whole bunch of people. Now we got a ton of people that's able to fight with you, and you're not standing alone. Over here, judgment, appeal, you're standing alone. Beginning, oh no, we have 70 million people that is affected in the exact same way, because we have 70 million people that have been charged with or convicted of a crime unconstitutionally by a state that had no authority to be able to oversee that because the judge has a conflict of interest. He works for the plaintiff and had a duty, self-executing, mandatory, non-waivable duty to recuse himself, and he didn't do it, which means that he's now warring against the Constitution, committed crime of treason. So you see, we get the power and the numbers by going to the beginning, by applying to the writ habeas corpus and saying, hey, this has happened to me, right? Which voids my judgment. I don't have to talk about any of those other things because I can talk about the same thing that 70 million other people can talk about. Now we have the power. Now we have the numbers. Now we are avoiding that because we're going to the beginning and we're saying, you know what, Supreme Court, you had a duty. You had a duty and a responsibility to oversee this, and you didn't do it. We're not coming to you saying, please review my lower court's decision. Please, I want to appeal to you. I want to beg you to listen to me. I want you to beg all by myself. No, we're going to come at the beginning. We're going to say, Supreme Court, you have to do this. You have to. Because there's an obligation for you to do it. It's right here in the Constitution. So we're going to go and we're going to invoke Article 3. We're going to invoke original jurisdiction. We're going to invoke our rights under the Constitution. And we're going to say to that court, you don't get to use discretion to disregard this because there is no judgment. I'm currently unconstitutionally imprisoned and being held against my will in violation of constitutional rights. That's where the habeas comes into play. What comes into play? And this has effectively been done. It was done in 2004 by the ACLU in the Guantanamo Bay prisoners, Rochelle versus Bush, and these other cases.
I think you're gonna keep on going over the same.
Yeah, that's good. So he going over when you're talking about you by yourself versus 70 million people, right? So when the one person come out telling the general public, he's gathering the 70 million to understand the fraud that's taking place. Once 70 million people understand the fraud, you got the power of the people to change it, right? Remember I told you when we went over the warrant in the prior class that it's a declaration of war against a single individual by a massive group or corporation.
Mhm.
That's why I say we the people of the state of whatever versus Chief Pontiac Rod Hayes. I'm by myself.
Mhm.
And they got all of the resources, and I don't have the resources. Because I don't have the resources, then they can abuse their jurisdictional authority by only waging war against me. It only affects me. But
Mhm.
when they issue the warrant against the whole nation, now that's when we form an automatic defense mechanism called a standing army.
Mhm.
An army of those who refuse to be tread upon.
Mhm.
Right? Remember the flag, the rattlesnake?
Mhm.
Don't tread on me.
Mhm.
Right? Because if you continue to just watch individuals, it's like watching the sniper shoot off all of the people in your village.
Mhm.
Every day at 12 o'clock, you take out 5. Either you're going to mount a defense or you're going to stop taking your ass out there at noon.
Mhm.
Right? That's called common sense. Right? This stems from the first law of nature, self-preservation.
Mhm.
Roll the coin, Elder.
All right.
An emolument violation is when you pay a public official to commit a crime.
You're paying for that sheriff to execute an unconstitutional warrant. And then when that sheriff goes and puts them into a jail that you guys fund, and that jail's housing them unconstitutionally, you guys are paying for that to be done.
There are 2 areas of the Constitution that reinforces this. The first is Article 1, Section 10, and that's where it says that no state shall create any law that shall impair the obligation of a contract.
Now, these are per se crimes, which means we don't have to prove that they intended to breach their constitutional obligation. Simply by virtue of the breach, all elements of crime have been met.
Police officers, your prosecutors, your judges, they're all under a contract to perform based on the oath or affirmation that they took to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
Title 18, subsection 242, which is deprivation of rights under color of law. What that statute says is that any person who, under the color of any state statute, ordinance, custom, or regulation, deprives any person of any right secured by the Constitution, commits that crime.
No state shall create or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of United States citizens.
Now, the second crime is Title 18, subsection 241, which is conspiracy to deprive of rights. What that law states is that when two or more persons conspire for the purpose of depriving any person of any rights secured by the Constitution, commits that crime.
Privileges and immunities of United States citizens are at a bare minimum those that are enumerated within the Bill of Rights and the First and Amendments.
The laws of criminal conspiracy with regard to public officials, what that states is that any person who, having knowledge of any of the wrongs conspired to be done and who have the power to prevent or aid in the prevention of the commission of same, neglects or refuses to do so, may be joined as defendants in the action.
I'm here today to provide notice that you cannot continue to pay public officials to commit crimes against the citizens of this state.
I want to remind you that the Constitution of the United States of America is the foundation, not a judge-made ruling.
So I'm asking you, please take a look at Clause 1, Amendment 5. Confirm the things that I'm saying to be true and direct your public officials to act in a lawful, constitutional manner that is consistent with the obligations codified in the Constitution of the United States of America.
So I implore you to please step up, discharge the duties of your office, fulfill the obligations and promise that you made to the people of the state of Pennsylvania, and let's preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comment.
Okay, several things they went over there. Color of law,
Mhm.
right, and conspiracy.
Mhm.
Now, they call people who expose this information conspiracy theorists.
Mhm.
That don't mean the conspiracy is not happening.
Mhm.
It's that somebody is giving the theory of the execution of the conspiracy and they exposing it. Therefore, the conspiracy theorist is the scientist that's coming up with a theory of the fraud. This is how it works, right? And then you heard her say, I'm here to give public notice for you to correct your people to follow the law. This is the republic reclaiming the republic back from the corporate. Once the republic is done making their rounds, you see he was in Wyoming, now he's in Pennsylvania. He's a civil rights attorney, but he was dispatched by the Trump administration to do all of the public notices to the agent, to the principal, while we've been notifying the agent at the grassroots level, organizing the 70 million people, so you ain't fighting this war alone with the one. The information becomes critical when you understand how it matches and meshes with the tribal tradition. And now you have a major civil rights attorney going around the country serving public notice, to several of them involved in it, as you seen the lady in the last video, right? But later on, we're gonna show y'all some videos of some foreign people serving public notice. We got, I think, one from Australia, and then we got one the Maoris serving public notice. We got time. We can go over a few of these, and then we'll isolate to the ones that we need to discuss more. Oh, the corn, Elder. We know the truth.
Hey, so it's going on worldwide. It ain't just going. It's going on worldwide because these people who went after everybody's spot on the planet, they're not from the planet. They panic poachers and they don't got no place to live, so they went around trying to take everybody else's around the world. All indigenous people.
That's why I say any God that told you that he created the whole of this world and didn't create you a place to be until he come back from death, right? That's a fraudulent God. Because if he created you and the whole world, he created somewhere in the world for you to be. But when you don't have no homeland, nowhere you go, and everywhere you go, you got to take it from other people, like you see going on in Gaza, but you also don't see it going on in Somalia, Sudan, and several other countries that you don't see it taking place, but the same genocidal assault to remove the people from the land is taking place, and they're using the pale-skinned Khazarians and the Zionist movement to do it. So we had to put the devil on notice. Once we put the devil on notice, he know that there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, because you got the tribes all over the world exercising the earthborn tribal right to follow our oral tradition, which is grandfathered in because it's never been overturned. As you see, you have civil rights attorneys doing it in active law in the current day. That shows you the validity of the public notices. And when the war chief is speaking, no matter what he's talking about in the public domain, it's a public notice to agent being notice to principal. And then it's also an awareness to all of the similarly situated members of different tribes across the land to, hey, this is what's taking place. This is what was done. This is the remedy. Right? Roll the coin. Roll the coin. We know the truth.
My name is Jessica Saxton. I'm a civil rights advocate and litigator from Washington, D.C. I'm here to provide public notice. This is in accordance with USCS Rules of Civil Procedure, as well as Rule 17 and Rule 20 of the United States Supreme Court.
Come closer to the mic, man. Closer
Sorry.
Closer to the mic. There we go.
Okay. The Constitution for the United States is the overarching requirements that every state must follow. I don't think anyone here would disagree with that. States are unable to enact their own alternative legislation and substitute it for the guarantees of the Constitution. That would mean that your state laws are in fact more powerful than the Constitution, and that would be unconstitutional. Clause 1 of Amendment 5 states that no person should be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment by a grand jury. Unfortunately, the state of North Carolina has enacted in its inferior constitution a law that contradicts the Constitution, and it permits prosecuting attorneys and police officers to charge by way of information as opposed to indictment, and that is unconstitutional. An emolument violation is when you pay a public official to break the law. There are two areas of the Constitution that reinforces this. The first is Article 1, Section 10. That's where it says that no state shall create any law that shall impair the obligation of contract. So a contract, your police officers, your prosecutors, your judges, they are all under a contract to perform based on the oath or affirmation that they took. The contract perimeters are in fact defined within the Constitution of the United States. So when your state enacted a law that directs their agents to disobey the Constitution, that would be a violation of Article 1, Section 10. The 14th Amendment is the other place that you'll find the reinforcement of this issue, and that's where it says that no state shall create or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of United States citizens. Privileges and immunities of United States citizens are at a very minimum those that are enumerated within the Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments. The state of North Carolina, again, unfortunately, has enacted within its law an inferior constitution that is permitting public officials and law enforcement, whom you all pay, to violate the Constitution of the United States. As a result, there's an inordinate amount of people that are currently imprisoned here in the state of North Carolina, illegally and unconstitutionally. Mr. Tanema Downing is preparing to litigate this issue at the United States Supreme Court on behalf of more than 700,000 people currently incarcerated unlawfully in America. So today I'm simply here to notify other public officials that you cannot continue to pay law enforcement officers, judges, prosecuting attorneys to break the law. Unfortunately, the criminal sanctions can come from that. We don't want to go down that path. So when we're just going around, we're making public officials aware that when you pay people to disobey the law, it is an emolument violation, it is illegal, it is unconstitutional, and it is a crime. And I do have a notice here that I would like to put on the record, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Speaker number 2.
You want to roll? Hey, Roy, you want to roll that speaker number 2? Well, they was gonna say the same exact thing that she's gonna say. I listened to the whole thing. But she was putting.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. That was enough for that one. We don't want, we still got like an hour and 20 minutes, so hour and 10 minutes, so we good for on time. But some of them we might want to go over some discussion, and then we might see some good questions in the chat dealing with what we're looking at. So we will deal with it as it comes, and we can just. I want to go to the if you could pull up the Australian one.
I think it's at the bottom. It might be. Okay.
From the desk of the living.
Which gives us the rights as the tribal peoples to instruct the colonising government of the land erroneously known as Australia to decolonise our tribal lands and to leave us as the free tribal peoples that we are to self-govern and self-determine for ourselves and for our peoples. We have given written notice to the state of Australia that we wish for it to decolonise our lands. And
keep in mind, the same people that colonized them colonized us, because King George and them colonized them too, as well with the penal colonies. They connected with us so deep it ain't even real. Like the same people that colonized us colonized them. Go ahead, Rod.
That's called the Queen's Holdings, right? That's why they call it the Queen's Land. It's everything Queen Lizard Bitch used to be in control of, right? So you seen that was Australia giving public notice to decolonize the land. That was the same public notice that I did when I first started back in 2019, when I told them because they never honored a treaty, we couldn't find one they ever honored to void all treaties for fraud and non-performance. That's what I did on July the 6th, 2019. Now you're seeing that other people have done it. Show them the Maori Big Mama, Elder.
Now that one right there.
We're seeking probable cause to assume that a crime has been committed. Now, I'm not after these judges. I'm not trying to say that they need to go to prison. I'm saying that they have legal, constitutional, statutory obligations imposed by positive law that they need to fulfill, and failure to do so is a crime. And they've already implicitly invited punishment in the form of perjury should they refuse to fulfill those obligations. When a judge enters into his office, he swears that he will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And then in Article 6, it clearly states the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of any states contrary notwithstanding. So they have an obligation that's constitutionally codified and imposed upon them by their oath of office. And failure to fulfill that promise is in fact a crime. They've already implicitly invited punishment in the form of perjury should they refuse to do it. So, my big argument, what we're bringing to the United States Supreme Court, and what I want to present to the people of the United States is an understanding that if our country is being led by criminals, people that are acting outside of the established code of conduct agreed upon by the majority, the Constitution of the United States, if they're acting outside of that, right, a criminal is simply one who transgresses the law. And it doesn't matter if it's a constitution or if it's a state statute. if you transgress the law, you are a criminal. So if our country is being led by criminals, right, people that are acting outside of the will of the majority, then our country will be led into an environment of criminality, and we will start producing criminals as a result of it. So before we can deal with the issue of criminality of the people, we must first ensure that we have leaders that are leading our country in a direction that's positive, that's good, out of love, faith, and obedience of the law and the agreed conduct established by the majority. And until we do that, we're not heading in a good direction. So we need to start at the top. We need to make sure that our leaders are leading us in a good direction out of love, faith, and obedience to the law. And once we do that, then we will start producing a good society. Then we can start addressing the issue of criminality. Because more than anything else, the issue of morality, right? The issue of morality is not one that we can deal with punitively. It's not one that you punish. You don't take a hurting person, put him into a hurtful situation, and expect him to suddenly start be happy. That's insane. That's not how it works. So we need to treat these people with love and respect. We need to understand that the issue of morality is a matter of public health. We can't continue to send these people into a hurtful situation that we call prison and then expect them to suddenly stop hurting.
They're not having grand jury. They refuse to hold grand juries for these charges, or?
That is correct, okay. Yes. So Article 1, Section 26 of the Washington State Constitution. Now, Washington is the primary defendant in our case at the United States Supreme Court. The Washington State Constitution, Article 1, Section 26, says no grand jury shall be drawn or summoned in any county. So in the history of the state of Washington, they have never convened a grand jury, despite the fact that Clause 1 of Amendment 5 to the United States Constitution requires it. Now, Clause 1 of Amendment 5 says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. So that's clear. You need to have an indictment by a grand jury before holding someone over for a capital or an infamous crime. So when the state of Washington says we're not going to do that, then that means that the moment that they issue an arrest or an order for an arrest, that is in fact an unconstitutional arrest because it derives from an unconstitutional act. And therefore anything that results from that unconstitutional arrest must also be unconstitutional because it's tainted by the illegality of the way in which it was obtained. So we've got news across the country.
You say what you say, Rod?
Yeah, he started to repeat himself. He just said all that.
Yeah. Right.
So what he's telling us there is that every one of these judges is frauds. That's what he's telling us. He's just being what they call diplomatic and Machiavellian about it. But he's telling us that the judges are frauds, they're criminals acting in a criminal capacity in a hot and active ongoing conspiracy that they all should be seized under the RICO Act in civil law or in common law, or not common law, innate law, right? And then in federal law, they all need to be arrested, but then we need new judges. What 90% of us didn't know is there are tribal courts on the land that we can go to and file these charges. We didn't know we had tribal courts. They never tell us about the tribal courts that's been operating, practicing the laws of the land the whole time they've been running their Admiralty stage show on us, deceiving us out of everything. Because we ain't supporting the tribal courts, they ignore their their presence, not just their jurisdiction, but their presence on the land. But the tribal courts need to be unified in order to serve collective notice on the corporation. And the only way to unify them is by us being aware that they're there and us being aware that they have superior jurisdiction to the corporation. And the corporation's charter is called the Constitution, because that's all it is, a corporate charter. So if it's a corporate charter and we have territorial rights supersede and overrides any Admiralty jurisdiction present operating on the land, because it's wartime jurisdiction of the conqueror, not the conquered. It looked like they was conquering us until we decided we done with the shenanigans, void the contracts for fraud and non-performance. Only one of us had to do it. Everybody didn't have to know how to end corporate jurisdiction, only one, with the ranking of a tribal chief, by being examined by different tribes from all across the land to determine if they're going to allow him to serve the public notice. And that's what took me so long since I got out of prison. All the tribes didn't believe. Right? But then when there's nobody else offering up the proper method for dismantling the corporation, and I'm telling them I know the method, they now have to be forced to listen. Now that they forced to listen, then I can come out and tell all the tribes in the public domain following the oral tradition that when we put them on this public notice, it's just a matter of time before we walk them down with follow-ups to the public notice. Just explaining everything we doing as we doing it so that there is an ongoing record of one of the chiefs doing the tribal work to reclaim the land. And they're going to return foundational documents in order to be able to prove that the work was being successfully accomplished, right? And once we connect all the dots, it's over with. So right now, they priming us for the downfall of the cabal exposure, which is the Obama gate that's about to bust open, right? And when this Obama gate busts open, that's going to bring out all of the information that you thought that they wasn't going to never give us because it implicated too many powerful and wealthy people. Them the ones we was after anyway. So we don't care if they get humiliated. They didn't care we were suffering. We don't care if their legacy is tarnished, right? Just like they didn't care that our babies was coming up missing and violated. We don't care. Drag their tail out into the open. Let the people see who they was. Expose them for the dirt they done. And let the people decide what to do with them. But we already know what the law say do with them. Because they wrote the law to govern us. So now we using their law against them. It's their law. Now we using their law against them. This is what the white hats came up with by putting Donald Trump in there in the first place. They been knew Obama wasn't no natural born American. They been knew that. That's not new information. They been knew his birth certificate was forged. That's not new information. They been knew that he was trying to have a third term from his basement because he said it out his mouth while he dictate to the person out in the front what to do from a radio in the back.
Kamala Harris.
There. The culmination of things that took place under the cover of secrecy. This is the age of Aquarius. All of the secrets had to be pulled out the dark. That means a whole bunch of skeletons out the closet. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's Diddy. I don't care if it's Celine Dion. I don't care if it's Hillary Clinton. I don't care who it is. If they was doing the dirt, they was doing the dirt. They did it. Wasn't me. I wasn't there. All I'm doing is making it exposed to the public so that they can roll out to the public without a massive amount of shock of the dirt that these wicked individuals was doing in the name of the almighty dollar. And the dollar was an illusion. It was a declared value currency that was declared under sorcery and dark magic in Jekyll Island because they didn't know where to do the conjure at until they discovered the burial site of the great chiefs. The same way they needed the blood of Crispus Attucks to write the contract of the second Constitution that's kept on display at the George Washington Masonic Memorial to put us all under their spell for 200 years. Right? All this is trackable. And now, because they can track it, they say they've tracked for 50 years all of the illicit wealth of the world. They know everything about all of the ones doing the dirt. And the only thing left now is to let all of the rest of the people know that they've been caught doing the dirt red fucking handed. Right? So just like they had their bloody hands across them sisters' mouths, and because they walked their White Sox through that bloody Boston massacre and gave them till they was Red Sox, understand me? We back for everything they owe. It just so happened they owe us everything. So we can't get reparations, because reparations is pocket change when you realize the wealth of your birthright. I want my birthright. Roll the
Yeah,
corn.
we don't want no bowl of soup. We don't want no bowl of soup deal no more.
Roll the corn, Elder. We know the
What you
truth
gotta
now.
remember is that every single state constitution subjected itself to the United States Constitution by entering into the Union. They gave up their sovereignty to subject themselves to the supremacy of the United States Constitution and be a part of the Union. Because the only thing that makes the Union is the Constitution. Absent the Constitution, there is no Union. So, if the Constitution of the United States is the only thing that connects, Colorado to New York or Colorado to California, that's the only thing that does it, then absent the Constitution, there is nothing that maintains the Union. Right? So states don't have the authority to be able to abolish or go against the Constitution, because that would mean that they're not part of the Union. That was not what James Madison created. That's not what the Constitution created. They don't have the sovereignty to be able to disregard the laws created by the central government, because the central government is what connects the whole country together. To what purpose is central government otherwise? But when you look at the North Dakota's Constitution here, so every single state constitution within the first article places itself in subjection to the United States Constitution. Washington State's Constitution, for instance, Article 1, Section 2 says the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. That statement is saying that that Constitution, not this Constitution, is supreme. So the state of Washington's Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, places itself in subjection to the Constitution of the United States of America, which means that if there's a conflict between the two laws, which one is supreme? Well, obviously, the Constitution of the United States is supreme. Which means that if there's a conflict of laws, which law is the judge or the prosecutor or public official supposed to follow? Well, the higher law, supreme law. That's why if there's ever a conflict between a state constitution and the federal constitution is what every public official, judge, prosecutor must follow. But if they don't, then they commit a crime. Deprivation of rights under color of law. We'll get back to that. But North Dakota's Constitution, Article 1, Section 3 says, the state of North Dakota is an inseparable part of the American Union, and the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. They say it's an inseparable part of the Union. Well, if the Union is nothing more than the Constitution of the United States, because that's the only thing that makes the Union, then that would mean that North Dakota is an inseparable part of the Constitution, right? So when the state of North
I think he's just gonna keep on talking about.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Remember a minute. So right there, he dropped a couple of different things from before he went into the judges trying to override the Constitution from the legislature. But he mentioned about the Constitution being the supreme law of the land, and this is called the Supremacy Clause. If you talk about jurisdictional supremacy, right, the law of the land is the supreme jurisdiction on the land, right? So when he bring up the superiority of the Constitution, He's showing you the construct of the fraud. He's deconstructing the fraud on the paperwork that's given. And they all are agreeing as franchisees of the corporate fiction called the United States. They are all creating corporate fictions that's an overlay to the legal reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is a constructed fraud is what it's called in law, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the fraud is discovered, the fraud put out and exposed voids all of the contracts that stem from the fraud, which erases the lines of demarcation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The lines of demarcation is the territorial layout of the salvage right called a grid. They put them over crime scenes all the time. It comes from war. To map out a territory, to understand the terrain, you give it lines of demarcation in order for you to establish and put vassal rulers over each one of the minor kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
That way you don't have to micromanage. You got somebody that can manage the parts. While if you manage the one managing the parts, that's how you manage the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's all being laid out in the unraveling of the legal knot that they tied us up in. They've never intended to follow the Constitution, like they never intended to honor a treaty. Those are stall tactics. They no longer work because we ain't falling for it any longer. Because you got one of the chiefs gonna stand up and tell you exactly what they doing now. And now you can be like, we don't want to participate in your shenanigans, and put it in the public domain. Make you a little 30-second TikTok and say, we no longer want to participate in this constructed fraud called the United States of America. And all of its fraudulent tentacles attached to it. Notice the agent is notice the principal. We don't want this BS.
Right.
You know what I mean? We tired of it. Right. It's not serving anybody's best interest, but a few people called elites. I don't care nothing about no elite, unless you're talking about a Chicago Vice Lord elite.
Right.
They're my dudes. Right?
Right.
But I'm one of Larry boys. But we all know tribally, and we all support the one that's going to figure out how to get us out of this conundrum. Right? So we cracked it. The code was cracked. The seal was broken. The knot was unraveled. And then the truth came out from behind all of that concealment.
Mm-hmm.
Roll the corn. We know the truth now.
When you're talking about leaders, are you talking about judges? Are you talking about who?
I'm talking about all three branches of government, all officers of all three branches. You have legislative, executive, and judicial. All three of them have officers.
And how is it that you're going to change that? How is it that you want to change it? What's your goal? What are you trying to change?
You know, that's a great question, because I know that for me, the moment that I realized that I was breaking the law, I couldn't do it anymore. I'm not a criminal. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to start doing things right. And that's what an honorable person, that's what a leader does. That is just good human temperament. We want to be good people. That should be the very first step in being a good person. And so, you know, the problem is that, as you know, the last time we talked, the last time I was on your show back in June, I had just finished serving all of the 37 state attorney generals, right? I went on after that and I served the 37 state Supreme Courts, same state courts. So now I serve the highest judicial officer after having served the highest executive officer. And then I also went back to DC and I served notice to all of the United States senators and 250 of the United States representatives. They've all been notified. And yet not one of them is talking about this at all. Not one of them is willing to even debate me on the issue. Like, even tell me why I'm wrong. Why is it that a state can act contrary to the Constitution and deprive people of the United States rights that are fundamental to them, and then blame the system when innocence is in prison suffering? That's not all right with me. It's not all right with me. It's not all right with me. It'll never be all right with me.
Okay.
So,
now, the question that I'm going to ask, what is the right that you're looking for to do the right? For people to understand that.
So, the Constitution is what it is. That is the agreed upon code of conduct established by the people. That's the only thing that makes America America. That's the only thing that gives public officials, government officials, their authority and grants them power. Nothing else. That innocence doesn't suffer. When you remove that one step.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Yep. So there he's talking about once you discover a fraud, the only remedy is called abandon of the fraud, right? In law, it's called the abandonment doctrine, meaning that if you in the process of doing something and you realize you committing a crime, at the point you realize you committing a crime, if you say, I'm not doing this and go the other way, but the people you with continue to commit the crime, you innocent under the abandonment doctrine because you abandoned the crime when your conscience activated that you was doing something wrong and you didn't want to participate in it. Now, what he went through in his revelation that he's explaining is he realized, being a student of law, there was a fraud present, prevailing, and stinking up the place. Yeah. And he didn't want to be a part of it. Right? So when you realize that the fraud is taking place, once you abandon the fraud, now you have to go through a period of contemplation of what to do once you discover the fraud.
Right.
Right? Now, he named all of the different numbers of people that's called principal. The ones who's instrumental in controlling over what the agents do. They the instructors to the agents to tell them how to maintain protections of rights as you maintain order of the corporation. So the layout that he's given, he's explaining that so that you know that all of the senators and congressmen, he named a number of them, been put on notice of a fraud being committed. Now, in law, this is called activating an obligator to their obligation. They are the ones obligated to interfere with the fraudulent acts of government once they become aware of it. Natural order, when you discover that you're committing a crime, of a person who is unawares, when he realizes it, he's going to naturally abandon the crime, right? But if he's in the position to correct the criminal error and straighten out the system, then it's rare, but he would do that instead of abandoning it, right? Normally, once they abandon it, now they try to get enough support to conquer and overthrow it. So you see guys like Ralph Epperson, who starts off as a high school teacher, and in the course of trying to understand the government and the country he live in, ends up writing this massive book called The Unseen Hand. Followed by his second book, and I think it's the only other book by him, is called UCC1, right? Now, he's trying to expose as many people to the construction of the fraud and explain it as best he can in about 700 pages, right? And he show you how to trace back to who's committing what fraudulent act over here, right? Then you have somebody like William Cooper, starts off in the Navy, becomes a naval intelligence officer, rise to above top secret clearance, and then he discovered that when you get above top secret, the whole mechanics of the fraud, right? So once he discovers it, he studies what he's looking at so he can figure out how to explain it when he abandoned the fraud. Once he abandoned the fraud, he put the manual of what his discovery was in Behold the Pale Horse, based off a biblical concept, in order to tell you it's ran by priests, but not the priest that you think. So he abandoned the contract, eventually ends up getting murdered by the sheriffs executing a warrant on his ranch, but really it was an excuse for an assassination. Then you have somebody like Jordan Maxwell. He's just a book reading geek who just so happened to hear stories being told by his uncle to his grandfather that interest him in the acquisition of the mechanics of the entire fraudulent system. So he never participated in the fraud. He studied the fraud, and then he wrote books and did lectures describing and explaining the whole fraudulent layout, and not telling you as a whistleblower, but telling you as a self-developed scholar, showing you his scholarship so that you would know the value of the information he brings when you read it, right? Then you have somebody like David Icke that realizes that the entities running the show not even from here.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to an old African shaman because he want to get to the root of the problem. And the African shaman, Credo Mutwa, carries the history back to about 100 and something thousand years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's telling the history from thousands of years ago, is making everything David Icke's seeing in his studies and investigation, as I think he started off as an investigative reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is his greatest story he ever cracked, was to go back to the old shaman and find out that they called the reptilians the Chitawule.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And that they were shape-shifting beings that can look like human, right? Mm-hmm. But he's describing it not as a shapeshifter, but as someone who changes form by being reborn in this frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was supposed to have what's called a mythic form. So every time the Earthborn killed a reptilian, what they didn't call them reptilians, they called them the Dracos. Mm-hmm. And they also called them the archons. So when we kill them, they start off looking like human reptiles or some reptilians like beasts, but then they end up, when they came back and was reborn so many times, they look human.
Yeah, dark
but
skin.
the energy frequency is still reptilian.
Right.
Right. And then because they taking on a 3-dimensional human form, right? Unless you're psychic, you can't see their true form. Mm-hmm. So now you got a mammalian laying with a reptilian, and neither one of them can tell the difference in the human meat suit. Mm-hmm. Making hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now we come to understanding why this information becomes so critical to put in the public domain, and so beneficial to the people when they understand the message and what's actually taking place that most of us aren't seeing on a day-to-day basis. Roll the corn now that we know the truth now.
Hey, quick question before we go to that. So, from my understanding on this, is the judge, the bar, the British accreditation, registration, all of them by participating, they all fraud because it's conflict of interest. The judge is they all signed to the bar, so it's all fraud because of the conflict of interest. Just one thing, right, Rod?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you got to remember, there's two different places in the first article of the Constitution that absolutely ban, one, the state from issuing titles of nobility, and two, the second place it says that the government, the federal government, can't issue titles of nobility. Right? And the Bar Association, since its inception and charter by King George back in Savannah, Georgia, was the first issue of a title of nobility, and it's under something called letters patent, where you get a title of nobility, but it's not passed down from you. It's not heritable. Yeah. It just covers you as a member of the royal house. You become under the control of the branch called barristers. These are the ones that wore the wigs to imitate the Moors who taught them law, jurisprudence. Right? So the Moors that taught them law used to have woolly hair that they part down the middle as a barrister, and they comb it in a downward fashion, and it was normally wavy hair, wavy, kinky hair. So they begin to take the fleece of wool of sheep to make the headdress of the barrister in order to make the barrister look like he's imitating the old Moors, mirror opposites. Right? So they showing you the mirror reflection of the original Moors, the Black Moors, who used to be the original lawgivers as the tribe of Judah, I think it is. And as the tribe of Judah, they are the ones who refer to themselves in modern times as Jews. Right? And this is why Revelation tell you, we know that works in our tribulation of those who say we are Jews and are not, but do lie, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Revelation 3:9 and 2:9.
Yep. So when they tell us that and we tracing it back, we reverse engineering what they did in order to conquer them and expose what was done so we can break free from their spell and they control. Once we break free psychically, we also break free physically, because you can't free the mind and your ass don't follow.
So they got the title Esquire. That's a title that they try to give them, Esquire.
Yeah. Those are the common attorneys, the practicing bar member attorneys are esquires, and the ones who play the role of the judge, they are honorables. And honorable is a title of nobility. Esquire is a title of nobility. His magistrate comes from majesty. His majesty is a title of nobility. It's normally reserved for the high seat of the king, right? Or his closest court members are called his majesty. That's where your term magistrate comes from.
All right, roll it.
In the Constitution, it identifies two different types of law jurisdiction. It identifies common law jurisdiction, and it identifies admiralty jurisdiction. Now, admiralty jurisdiction deals with contracts. It deals with contract law. That's all it is, just contract law. Now, a little history behind our country, a little history behind the whole admiralty jurisdiction thing, and you know, some of you guys are gonna learn a little bit about some word etymology here, but going back to the founding of our country, right? 1628 and the stamp tax, okay? So we had the stamp tax, which led to the Boston Tea Party. You know, if you guys aren't aware of it, it was extremely unpopular amongst colonists. They hated it, right? They hated it because it was taxation without representation. We didn't have the ability to say, oh, no, we don't want this tax, because we weren't represented in the parliament. And so as a result, we were being taxed without our ability to be able to say, no, we don't want to be taxed. It was taxation without representation. And so what happened in 1628 was that the stamp tax came through and nobody would find anybody guilty of it. So people kept getting arrested, kept on, coming into a trial, and the jury would not find anybody guilty. The jury of the colonists would not find anybody guilty of this particular offense. And it made the king mad. He's like, well, okay, if you guys aren't going to find anybody guilty, then I'm going to eliminate your ability, and I'm just going to have my officers be able to operate arbitrarily, right? So what happened back then was that the king switched us from common law jurisdiction into Admiralty jurisdiction. And the reason why is because in Admiralty jurisdiction, you don't have the right to a jury trial. In Admiralty jurisdiction, it is a court-martial. It's the same thing was going on down in Guantanamo Bay in 2004 with Rochelle versus Bush, right? And so what happens there is that the allegations come in by an agent of the state, a prosecutor, whatever, and they bring the accusation against you. You're presumed to be guilty, and then they bring you into this sham process where the judge acts as both the judge and the jury in this process that they say is valid. It's not valid, but that's what Admiralty jurisdiction is. It allows for the king's agents to be able to bypass the fair and neutral decision maker of a jury to be able to do whatever they want, right? To be able to tax you and win. And so, Thomas Jefferson, he wrote about this actually 3 separate times within the Declaration of Independence. One time he said that we are subjected to a jurisdiction that's foreign to our laws, right? So we were subjected to Admiralty jurisdiction, which was foreign to our laws. That was a statement that he made directly in the Declaration of Independence. Another reference was where he said that in most cases we're not provided a trial by jury. And so both of those had to do with what was going on at the very time there, because
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so he was going into how King George instituted the Bar Association to override what we were talking about earlier, tribal courts, colonial courts, right? Because in the colonial courts, they would never agree to find somebody guilty of an unnecessary tax. And remember, he said they had a seat at the Parliament. Mm-hmm. Parliament is in London. Mm-hmm. Right? That's where London lawmakers reside in practice. So the whole bar been giving us the illusion of being a constitutional protectorate of the rights of the people instead of a corporate seizure branch of lawyers hired by the king to represent his interests across the land. Mm-hmm. And they used the Bar Association to masquerade as the correct and constitutionally supported judiciary, right? Mm-hmm. So they enforced it with force and solicited agents of the crown that was set up as the police in the police state to monitor the people in order to maintain a power. It's the same as hiring some thugs to go beat up the people for harassing your daughter in your store. Right? So the thugs, the gangs of policy enforcers became the law enforcement, but what law are they enforcing? They enforcing Admiralty law. Mm-hmm. As he just went over. Mm-hmm. So he explaining the whole breakdown of the fraud so that we can get from under the tyranny of a tyrannical system. Mm-hmm.
All right, roll that next one.
All right, let's check this out. What's going on in here? Boston Chronicle. All right, let's see.
Let's go to page 55. Oh, look. Looks like all the birth certificates got frauded out.
They getting cut off piece by piece. Go ahead, Rod.
So that one there was showing you the public notice in the back of a free newspaper, right? It's also the long-standing public notices was always traditionally in the newspaper, right? And you can go through old newspapers and see public notices. I think up until the 90s when I think they stopped doing them in the major newspapers, New York Times, Chicago Sun, Washington Post, they all stopped putting public notices in their paper, but the local papers still continue, like the Chicago Tribune, and lesser papers in New York, Philadelphia, they still carry the public notice section in the back of the newspaper. Right. If the newspaper, all the newspaper got to do is have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers in order for it to be a valid public notice. Right. So those free newspapers it put out in the community, they have to put out at least 1,000 newspapers in the community to get the public notice out. Right. So now we have the benefit of having a more accurate timestamp down to the second, right? And the date stamp in social media, right? That's why they show you stuff that come back up in your memory to remind you of all of the stuff you put in the public domain prior to this day. So on this day last year, you put this public notice out, and as you scroll down 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5, however long you had your social media page, right? They just recently took off all of the videos on YouTube that's over 30 days old, the lives we was keeping, right? I'm just hoping when we get our data back, we can get all our footage from our lives back too. We should be able to.
All right, let's roll with the next one.
I wanted to show you something. You might have missed it. It was very small, but it is so big. In the Australian today, on the 28th, Monday the 28th of April 2025, there's a notice, a public notice. I'm going to read it to you. This is big. Commonwealth Public Notice. Let it be known to all concerned and affected parties on the 13th of April 2025, a public reading and signing of the Declaration of Trust and Founding Trust Deed was executed and entered into the public record at Hyde Park, Sydney, New South Wales, under the authority of the people of the Commonwealth of Australia. The trust is available to view publicly at commonwealthpublicnotice.org. You know what this means? It means you can come home. It means that the real de jure Commonwealth of Australia exists and you can come home. Go to commonwealthcustodians.org to learn how. It's big.
And to my naysayers, I'm about to prove how the Moors were in.
That one ain't one.
Okay, so she went over the public notice in a major Australian newspaper of the tribes of Australia that she called the people, are reclaiming their sovereign right from the crown jurisdiction of Admiralty Maritime. So she was reading out the public notice that was in the paper. Remember I told you that they put them in the paper?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Objection. We have a letter being delivered from the Muscogee Creek Nation on behalf of Muscogee Creek spiritual leadership in opposition to Cop City.
I came all the way on the Trail of Tears to deliver this letter to you folks. We want you to know that the contemporary Muscogee people are now making their journey back to our homelands, and hereby give notice to Mayor Andrew Dickens, the Atlanta City Council, the Atlanta Police Department, the Atlanta Police Foundation, the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, and so-called Cop City, that you must immediately vacate Muscogee homelands and cease violence and policing of Indigenous and Black people in Muscogee lands. We also ask for an independent investigation into the assassination of our relative Tortuguita, and that the charges be dropped against Welaunee Forest defenders. According to the history of Muscogee peoples, we originated in so-called Georgia, near the Muscogee Creek, in the valley of the Ocmulgee River, as individual tribal nations. We lived as stewards and in relationship to this land for more than 13,000 years until the illegitimate state of Georgia negotiated with the tyrant Andrew Jackson for the militarized forced removal of Muscogee and Cherokee relatives to Indian territories. Mayor Dickens, can I give this letter to you? Oh, he got one. Mayor, we want to talk to you about our homeland.
The Muscogee Creek people.
Should I keep reading?
Yeah.
Georgia is the birthplace of oppressive policing, originated with the indigenous genocide and the Trail of Tears, and the capture and enslavement of African descendants seeking their freedom. Our ancestors who are buried here continue to suffer while the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia deploy the very same escalated military tactics against Black.
Objection.
So that was a girl from the ceremonial Muscogee Creek that was issuing a public notice in Atlanta to vacate, right? So we got a lot of public notices being given to the legal fiction all over the country and around the world. See if we can find that the Maori Big Mama though. She was the old lady that was talking to the.
Ever wonder how a whole tribe signed a treaty?
Which gives us the rights as the.
From the desk.
That probably was one that went down low because we only got like about 3 minutes left for tape right here. It's this 1 minute tape, then it's 30-second ones, and then it's like a 2 minute one. So we don't have all those, and then we'll.
Ever wonder how a whole tribe signed a treaty in 1790, but vanished by 1870? Let me show you how Uncle Sam made them disappear on paper.
Your Honor, we present Exhibit N, Part 2. How do you erase a people without lifting a gun? You change their name in the record. These are the same families, same last names, same land. But once those treaties were signed, poof, no more tribe. Do not record Indian unless the person is of full blood. We must prevent those of mixed blood from claiming Indian identity. They gave one name to the treaty, another to the census, and told the world they were gone. But the truth, they were just rebranded. Paper genocide, signed, sealed, and delivered.
Hit that plus button so we can return their real names to the record.
All right. Then you got this
which
one right
gives
here.
us the rights as the tribal.
From the desk of the living, let this stand as final and public notice of your dishonor, your breach of fiduciary oath, and your unlawful usurpation of jurisdiction not granted by the people, the land, nor the living nation of which I am lawful trustee, beneficiary, executor, postmaster, and commander. This is not a petition. This is not a request. This is a binding and sovereign warrant of correction and eviction. By the power vested in me, through the Creator, by blood, breath, trust, and treaty, I hereby strip your court of any presumed jurisdiction. You are evicted from any and all claims, standings, or proceedings against the living trust estate. And now, and furthermore, you have defrauded the court by recording fiction, mislabeling instruments, forging jurisdiction, misapplying statutes, and acting in open hostility towards a federally protected person and trust estate, in violation of international law, the Geneva Convention, and fiduciary duties of your office. You are out of bounds and out of time. I hereby levy a fee schedule and fiduciary penalty against any further action, delay, or obstruction against the estate, enforceable at $10 million per day per living man or woman trespassed, beginning 5 days from date of receipt of this warrant. Each unlawful citation, booking, detainment, or administrative process without explicit bilateral contract or trust agreement constitutes high commercial fraud and military grade breach of duty. The court has failed to name its authority, jurisdiction, or bond, a telltale sign of insolvency, dishonor, and concealment of material facts. Your oath is broken. Your legitimacy is void. You are mud. I am not lost at sea. I am the lighthouse returned. The court is not abandoned. It has been reclaimed and reseated. The land you raised has resurrected its title holders. The living are back in possession. You now face the public exposure of your system, the financial penalty of your fraud, and the spiritual consequences of your acts against the estate and this people. Either vacate all charges, dockets, and records immediately. Seal and expunge every entry. Issue full apology, reparative offer within 5 days, or face enforcement of this lawful instrument in all lawful jurisdictions, including international, commercial, military, and tribal court. You have mistaken our silence for surrender. This was your final mistake. We do not seek vengeance, but we do execute justice. And we are now armed with the law, the lineage, and the ledger. We, with full lawful capacity. Verdigris Botanica Tribal Nation Trust.
Hey, how the mob bosses say, and that's that. That's the icing on the cake right there for the public notice right there.
Okay. So she did that like in the whole of the system, but she showed you the controlling players as the judges and gave them instructions and consequence of penalty. Right. So the grievance process is you can't write a grievance on something that can't be remedied. Right. The structure of the grievance has to state a clear call or action caused. Then you got to state a clear effect of that action. So if the grievance is because he punched me in the face, that's the action that caused the harm. I got a bloody nose. That's the harm that was caused. The remedy is I want to punch that mofo back in his nose till his nose bleed. Right. So you offered up the 3 key points of a grievance: cause, damage, and remedy. Once you do that, the grievance becomes self-activating.
Hey, we got about 15 minutes, Rod. We'll take questions from the crowd. Hey, y'all, if y'all want to show Brother Rod some love from the for the tape, we dropped his PayPal and Cash App in the links. If you got some questions concerning this tape, drop it in the chat. We'll put it on the screen so Chief can answer it. Man, this is the part. This is the part where they following. Also about them birth certificates, man. Them T-buns. See, that's the only way they were stealing the game, because they was using the birth certificates to sell the T-buns. But now them T-buns dissolving, even if people didn't go through the old way of claiming their stuff back, it's dissolving by the fraud. because they've been fraud so long. A fraud system can only go on for so long for the universe, the ultimate power of righteousness ended by default without even the people, with the people agreeing to it mentally. See, once we all came to the awareness of mentally of what's happening to us and the fraud, it automatically goes away just by that default, just by us being aware of it. The universe automatically comes in and do something about it. Yeah,
that's absolutely correct, Elder.
Yeah.
Once you become aware of it, then you automatically start making deals with God on how to overcome it in your psyche and your subconscious. You're aware of it now, it's just brought it to the conscious, and you're going to automatically know what to do to act upon what your part is.
Right.
We already have military, you just didn't know it.
Crips, disciples. Hang, we got a whole army now. Crips, disciples, the Pyru, man, the list go on.
But it's more to it than this. So what he don't know, this also brings this to mind. Remember the white hats? Pick Trump to run for president after he got done trained on how to fire people. He became the liquidator in chief, right? So the military is actually because we've been under military control for almost 10 years now, right? However long it was when Trump first got elected to now, that's how long we've been under military control. When they sent out the letter from George Bush, that was when they started switching people out with actors from central casting because they started putting them in tribunals in Gitmo, right? So now we seeing the rollout, but it was all done through military intelligence is the ones who made the tree of corruption that they had to chop down. We had to know everybody on the tree. Right. So they got little pockets here and there, but they ain't gonna get away. But most of them gone. But now we at disclosure part and military intelligence. Remember, they have access to all of the documents on how to control the masses. In most of the rich Black celebrities' contracts, through the Screen Actors Guild, it's a clause but that they can't do certain community work in their areas. So, and some of them are barred from doing any type of charitable work. So you don't never hear their name coming up in charitable causes because they barred by contract. Right. That's part of the deal with the devil they be telling everybody about they making Hollywood. Do you think they want our pineal gland and connect it to the computer chip? What that building about? They want to build in Memphis. They don't need to hook you up to a computer to interface with your psyche. They don't need to tie directly to your pineal gland. Right? They have now two-way radio transmission where they can actually be talking to you in your head and you just think you're thinking about something.
Sure do. Because Mark Brady talked about that a long time ago.
AI is a computer program. In the computer program, parameters determine the role they play and who's behind it. So the way AI is designed, that the quality of the question you ask will determine what program allow them to answer that question.
That's right.
But because it doesn't have certain capacities of deception, there's ways you can question AI where AI can tell you the truth.
Respect.
All right. So you got a lot of people learning how to interface with AI. But remember, once you interface, you enter your face into the AI system. Biometrics, right? So AI playing a significant part in the awakening, but is it artificial intelligence or ancestral intelligence? Because you know how to talk to your mama in a way to get stuff done that some of your siblings don't know how. They don't understand the language. Strategically, what's the next best economic move and political move to make next 6 to 12 months? At this point, we passed trying to come up with new strategies. We finna see the result of the strategy that is applied. You just got to be prepared enough to take care of your family in a time of crisis, and your part of the job is primarily covered at that point, right? Do you have a generator, right? Do you have access to fuel for the generator? How long will them generators run what you need ran before you run out of the use of the generator? Can you run it a week? Can you run it 2 days? You need to know that as a man in the family that's out front. Because if the electrical grid go down from these ships' presence, overwhelming the frequency and magnetism of the earth that'll ground these electrical systems out, you won't have no electronics. So how will you be able to compensate for that before the system be able to be repaired?
And so I got tapes out on that, the how to survive the first 90 days blackout and 100 days when it hit the fan, and what supplies you would need, the solar generators and all that. We got that too in the military playlist. Go ahead, Roy. This right here.
If you remember, Elder, you should post them in the description here after the fact.
Yeah, I do it. I got all that. I posted in there.
Yeah. So she said, how do you see all this playing out realistically? Realistically, I see them securing what they call critical key points with the National Guard. I see them then exposing the Obama arrest as the opening of the disclosure. And the reason I believe that is because they've been doing soft disclosure, and Trump just came and sat out and said that Obama committed treason, and they got all the paperwork. So that is going to have to be the gateway to the floodgate of the fall of the cabal exposure. It's all the big movies, central casting. And then, of course, once all of that stuff heats up, that's to try to conceal the arrival. Remember that. Chief, what's your insight on gold? I know you spoke about it a couple of times. It's going to be the controlling currency on the reset because we're going to be doing away with credit. Won't be no need for credit, right? So gold was going to be the standard. You can either get it in gold notes or you can get it in gold coins. But gold will be the controlling backing of the wealth of the people that taking away the debt system. So everybody will be able to have the means to get what you want. Plus, when you switch over to the gold standard and bring the new currency online, it's going to crash inflation. That means prices is going to plummet. And remember, it's a good chance that a lot of people are not going to understand what's going on and tear their cities up, raid their grocery stores. So we need to learn how or know how to sustain ourselves in a time of crisis. Greetings, how can we dialogue? I have resources. I searched for your emails, could not locate. I don't use email. The The most likely way to contact me is by Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger. But I haven't been answering my messages lately because I've been moving away from social media. So now I'm primarily, I just post.
All right, y'all, we'll take about one more question and then we'll get up out of here.
So when the shit hit the fan, it falls to the ability that was bestowed upon us as the collective or individually to sustain life, or what's ours as sovereign beings. Yes, it's always been our right, but we had to remember the method. Not only was it our right, whenever we remembered the method and one of us used the method, it began to be self-actualizing to conquer the fraud. It become then on who can alert the most people of the fraud. How do we know it's the real Obama been arrested? We don't, because of his clones, but we do know that the real Obama had already been arrested. Right before he got arrested after the Bush boys. So when they arrested the Bush boys, right before he got arrested, he did a speech at some Democrat convention saying that you shouldn't use the JAG courts on your political opponents.
Hey, shout out to that boy Montu Raw. He said check out Ham. He said check out Ham Radio certifications. I'm gonna check that out, Montu. Shout out for the super chat. Hey man, we got about 2,000 people on. If everybody can send Rod $1, that'll put them in the game. So we need Rod sitting at home calling these plays like this on these cats. Because this right here, we at what you call crunch time. As we go out, as we crack, they get out of here and get rocks and run Big Mama stuff back. We got to keep an eye on them because they the type of guys that like to kick you in the balls before they leave. You know what I'm saying? They type of guy like to get one off on you. So we ain't gonna let them get that one off on us this time. We're gonna block that one they're trying to get off on us. Hey,
Yeah,
so Rod, I go Rod, say Rod.
They still got to tell us everything they're gonna do. That's why we warned everybody about these schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
They told us what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So all we can do is either listen or suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
But they sure gonna try to kick us in the testicles.
Yeah, right before they get out here. They them type of guys, you know. But we watching for that though. Hey y'all, so yeah, if you can send them more, send them 5. If we can get 100 people to send them 5, that'll put them in the game. We got 2,000 people. So we gotta keep Raw in the game so that we can keep them sitting here watching these suckers 24 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? Because we at crunch time here. We've been at war for so long. We think it's normal. We think that we ain't at war because we in a normal. We feel like it's normal. War is normal because we're doing it so long. You know what I'm saying? But they've been attacking us. Go ahead, bro.
And a lot of us don't realize that war take different forms depending on what stage of the war conflict you in. We fighting a 500-year-old protracted struggle, right? We've been fighting it in every field of human endeavor: education, economics, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war, and health. Right? So we've been fighting it the whole time, but we started getting to the point we forgot we was fighting it, and we started enjoying being dancing on the battlefield.
And also, like I said, hey, Roy, I need you to send me that one you had Trump talking about that paperwork, because Trump was saying in that paperwork that he was saying that paperwork that they got Obama. They said they got the 5,000 papers or something on all the crimes that Obama and his whole organization was. I was like, man, this would have been crazy. This would have get. Ain't no telling what's up in that paperwork.
They say everything that Obama did, he was recording it. It was like he had like they discovered a diary or something, or a ledger where he was going over, but that's how they got it cataloged.
Mm-hmm.
It don't necessarily have to be a journal. It could be emails, text messages.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Recorded conversations in closed rooms. Because the politicians do that.
Yeah.
They have to record certain conversations, but they got to have a private conversation, and then later they release the contents of the conversation. Right? So whatever the conversation is that's been taking place that's recorded, they have the entirety of everything. The same way with the 2020 election, they caught the person that hacked the election. Red-handed. Coming out of the office that they traced him to hacking the election. But we think that's fake news because fake news is so prominent. Real news sound absurd.
Right? That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, y'all. We're going to be back, y'all. We're going to be back on Monday. We can try to keep you updated about every 3-4 days on what's going on in the land because we at crunch time now. Big Mamas, they finna run Big Mama stuff. Ain't no questions asked. Ain't nothing to talk about no more. Unless you want to holler at Uncle JoJo. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing to talk about no more. Because our Uncle JoJo's finna come back. They got rid of our Uncle JoJo's. That we always, every family had their Uncle Joe or had that enforcer that kept, you know what I'm saying? Every family had one of those. Tookie Williams was one. He was one of them ones that he actually went around beating up bullies. He actually hated gangs. Tookie actually hated gangs. He went around beating up gang members until he met Raymond Washington. And then he said, okay, yeah, we can hook up. Him and Raymond, right? But yeah, man, we back on the land. That's how we rocking. Hey, y'all, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. And as always, free all our political prisoners. Shout out all our matriarchs returning on the land. We back in business, y'all. And on that note, we out. You want to say something, Rod?
Yeah, remember, we went over people giving public notices so that we aware that Chief Pioneer Rod Hayes not the only one using the tribal format, right? Disregard what you think the person that's serving the public notice supposed to look like. Look at the cause and effect of it, right? Why would we let people that don't look like us give the public notice? Because we're not sending nobody else out there that look like us to get murdered. Because they know what we doing. So we draft representatives to do it the same way they do. And it's an old rule. You can't shoot the messenger. Right? So the messenger, we can send whoever we want to send, but if we send one of us, we ain't the messenger. We are the authority. So they're trying to kill the authority, but you can't kill the authority if you send the messenger.
Right.
You walk in jurisdictional supremacy and don't even know it. Right? So we have to let people that understand how it's corrupted, put them on public notice to shut the corruption down, which also serves as a secondary effect of me being able to show y'all the dismantling of the fraud in real time. So that was the purpose of this, was to go over that information and to remind y'all, notice the agent, notice the principal. Right? All media outlets with a reach of more than 1,000 people in a time-stamped archivable format is the measure for accurate and correct public notice. Anybody who want to issue their sovereign public notice, any social media is a valid outlet for you to state your ability to govern yourself to the fraudulent system so that we can make it known we don't need it no more. Anybody can do it, and it don't got to be long. You just got to put it in the public. On social media, it's in a time-stamped archivable format. right? And that's the reason we doing it. It's the tribal standard of redemption from the legal fiction that uses the paperwork as a paper chain.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, hey, shout out Mama for the super chat. On that note, y'all, we out. One love, one heart, peace. Wadu. Never have it been made so clear.